All right. Good morning, fellow followers of Christ. He is risen. He is risen indeed. Last week was Easter, and I've been reflecting on this saying, words that are said by almost every Christian and said throughout the Christian world during this time of year. And I thought to myself, what do they mean? Being a Christian means to accept some certain truths about the fundamental nature about the spiritual realm. And chief amongst these truths is that we, in our power, cannot secure ourselves a place in heaven. You see, when given the choice, we walked away from God. We told him, we don't want to do the things that you ask of us to have a relationship with you. And God in his benevolence allowed us to walk away from him. But no matter how far we walked away from God, and no matter how much harm us being away from God caused us, God still, in his heart of hearts, wanted to have a relationship with us. But because we had made that choice to walk away from him, there was no way that we could actually have a relationship with God as he originally intended. This is where Jesus comes into the picture, because it was through his death and resurrection on the cross that the barrier to having a relationship with God was removed. That is why we say with such enthusiasm, he is risen, because what was once denied to us is now a reality to us, even though God was under no obligation to actually make it happen. God showed us grace and mercy through Jesus Christ on the cross, even though we had already walked away from him and told him we don't want to have a relationship with you. And for those people who have returned to have a relationship with God, showing those who still choose to walk away from God, the grace and mercy that God showed us is a mark of a true Christian. We're living in a world today in which anybody can call themselves a Christian, but many times you really can't tell if they are or are not a Christian. So it's really important to clearly distinguish characteristics and behaviors that Christians are to display if they want to call themselves a Christian. That is why to call yourself a Christian or to be called a Christian, you must display the same kind of grace or be trying to display the same kind of grace that Christ showed to us that we accepted by his death and resurrection on the cross. This is probably one of the most fundamental principles of being a Christian that nobody today wants to deal with in depth. And the more I've meditated on the meaning of grace, the more I've understood what it means to be a Christian and what I need to display as a Christian in today's world. We are living in a time that desperately needs Christians to stand up and actually display the grace that God has shown them. I'm going to give you two examples of how this grace can be applied in today's world. People all around the world today are being displaced from the places where they live by war, famine, and political upheaval. And these people flee from their countries, their home countries. They don't want to countries that are a lot more stable, like Europe or United States or Canada. But unfortunately, in many of these countries, they're met with fear, hostility, and hatred. But because of the grace God showed Christians, Christians will show that same unmerited favor to all refugees and those who are fleeing their countries. This may be unsettling to some, but true Christians know this as God's truth. And even if a Christian is unable to directly support or help a refugee, somebody who's fleeing the terror of another country, they will call on their elected leaders to spend tax money, to spend their hard-earned tax money to help these people, to resettle them, to make them have a better life where they're at in this country. Christians will also not disparage a refugee with their thoughts or with their words, looking on them with kindness and compassion for their situation. Grace also extends to those within a person's country who have been disenfranchised by the powers and by the government. In America, we have many non-dominant cultures within our borders. Many have come to this country out of their own free will, but there was one predominant one that did not. It was forced here through the Atlantic slave trade. And even though many years have passed since the days of slavery, the effects of the stereotyping and the bigotry and hatred towards those who were slaves still affects us today. And while the rest of the nation is bigoted and racist, Christians identify and resist such unchristian attitudes. They will not see a black man as a thug just because he has been portrayed as a bad man, nor will they see him or any other person of color as lazy, watermelon, fried chicken eating, welfare collecting drain on society. The unmerited favor of grace means viewing people, no matter where they came from, with sympathy, compassion, kindness, no matter what their background is or where they came from. Those who are not Christians are preoccupied with subjugating those who have no power in order to feel powerful. But a Christian will speak up for and love those who have been marginalized, even though nobody else will. And this is what I mean when I talk about grace not being fully explored in depth. Because I only came up with 2 examples of how grace should be fully realized in today's world. But how far and deep does grace go? And what does it mean for Christians' everyday life? A lot more needs to be done on this topic. My name is David Patton. I publish videos most Fridays talking about my Christian faith and my journey through it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share it with somebody who might enjoy it. I'm gonna put last week's video right about there. Go ahead and go watch it. And if you feel so inclined, go ahead and subscribe by clicking right there. Have a wonderful week, and God bless.